and ideas, as well as listen to each other's concerns. My visit coincides with the monsoons that is expected to reach Delhi in a few days. There were reports that these year's monsoons would be, once again, lesser than the previous years. This is probably another sign that climate change, but I will speak more of climate disruption, is not a distant threat. Its consequences are apparent every day: melting of glaciers and polar ice caps, rising water levels, desertification. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change delivers a very clear diagnosis. Climate change is real. It is caused by us, and it is happening now. At the current growth rate of greenhouse gas emissions, you know that the temperature could increase by 5 degrees Celsius by 2100. Needless to say, it would be a very different world, definitely not the world we want to live in. What do we risk by not reducing emissions? I often use the words climate disruption instead of climate change. It is, I think, a more accurate description of the risks we are facing. Abrupt alteration in the Earth's climate, provoking shifts too rapid for ecosystems and societies to adapt. It could wipe out decades of development efforts. But I don't want that you get me wrong. I'm not talking about a distant future. Climate disruption is already here, and it is a problem for all of us, and it is a problem for now. Is this avoidable? I think the answer is yes. According to scientists, it is not too late. It is still possible to keep to the target of an increase below 2 degrees. We are just 500 days away from the COP21 to be held in Paris at the end of next year, or as we call it, Paris Climate 2015. The objective is crucial: to reach a global climate agreement that will involve all countries in an effort to limit global warming under 2 degrees and provide vulnerable countries with the means to adapt to ongoing climate disruptions. We are not starting from scratch. Many countries in Europe, but in other countries as well, are becoming low-carbon economies. Some are even moving towards carbon neutrality. Others, which were once reluctant, such as China, the US, and Brazil, are also, I think, joining in. In total, almost 100 countries have committed to cut their emissions. India is obviously a part of this global effort. The development of renewable energy has been remarkable, and India is now the world's 5th largest wind energy producer. Nuclear energy, called also TechHalf, this signal points to the direction that leading scientists such as Dr. Pashuri have been outlining: reach the peak of global greenhouse gases emission, if possible by the end of this decade, and phase out greenhouse gases emissions over the course of 21st century. Are we going there? More and more signals are suggesting that we are. But are we going there quickly enough? Unfortunately, the answer up to now is no. So, what can we do together, India and France, to help our nations and the world cope with this challenge? As Chief Minister of Gujarat, Prime Minister Modi, was actively involved in designing and promoting climate policies while working hard for its development. As Mr. Modi put it in his 2010 book, quote, "Climate change is not only an environmental issue, but also a developmental issue," end of quote. With decades of economic growth ahead of it, India will determine in a sovereign manner a sustainable development pathway that creates growth and jobs and improve energy security. France welcomes India's new government commitment to put sustainability at the core of its planning process, to bring down pollution and to meet the challenges posed by climate disruption. France also warmly welcomes Prime Minister Modi's announcement of what he calls a saffron revolution for India, based on solar energy, which will bring electricity to 400 million Indians. This bold plan embodies the solutions agenda that France is promoting in the run-up to Paris 2015. The notion that fighting climate disruption delivers many co-benefits in terms of growth, health, or quality of life. It is not an extra problem, it is an opportunity we must seize together. And I see at least 5 areas of possible concrete cooperation between India and France. First, cooperation on carbon-free energy with a stress on new technologies. For instance, in Normandy, France is developing offshore wind energy. We are also working on the conversion of ocean thermal energy, a technology we are ready to experiment with India. Second, developing our partnership on civilian nuclear energy, which provides carbon-free electricity to meet the growing Indian demand. France, with its cutting-edge technology, is committed to deepening its partnership with India in this field with the highest standards of safety. 3, water. I praise Prime Minister Modi's commitment to clean up the Ganges and other rivers of India. The Indo-French water network, established last year, could facilitate exchanges. The conservation of Himalayan ecology is another example of our shared agenda. Urban development. We are ready to share technology and know-how to make Indian existing or new cities greener and more energy efficient. And space as well. The Indo-French satellites launched in 2011, 2013 and recently help us gain a better understanding of climate change and its consequences on ocean, coastal areas and monsoons. We stand ready to expand this cooperation. Private companies have a central role to play here by providing capital and technologies. Indian and French companies already have a substantial cooperation in key sectors like energy, water and transport. And all these fields of cooperation are very concrete. In order to boost our cooperation, I'm happy to announce that France has decided to propose a credit line of up to 1 billion euros over the next 3 years for sustainable infrastructure and urban development in India through the French Development Agency. And beyond that, I have come to Delhi to deepen our dialogue regarding the climate change global debate. We have to be an impartial facilitator. And France is reaching out to all countries. And I'm here to understand India's challenges and Indian ideas and learn of your initiative, and not at all to teach lessons. India has stressed its concern to see its development hampered by a climate treaty. Its contribution will ensure that the agreement paves the way for fair access to sustainable development. And we have decided with my colleague in charge of climate change here to prepare the Paris conference together, because it cannot be done otherwise. A number of principles can guide us, I mean both of us, as we build this future agreement. A, we have to be ambitious. We should aim at setting emission reduction targets that will bring the planet back on track with this 2 degrees limit. We have to have a fair participation. Obviously, our countries must make efforts, but they must make efforts based on their different respective capabilities and international responsibilities. Third, the question of equity is a key point. As once more Prime Minister Modi put it, quote, ethics and equity are at the core of the debate on climate change, end quote. The agreement must take into account each country's constraints and capacities, building an action agenda that would ensure access to sustainable development. We must, at the same time, pay attention to trust and transparency, which is the very basis of any possible agreement. And we must insist on cooperation. We should aim at strengthening international cooperation via access to finance and technology. And your minister insisted particularly on that, and I think it's quite right. Because if you don't have the share of technology and the share of finance, you can develop brilliant ideas, maybe brilliant, but nothing concrete to meet the needs of all countries. And also, we are fully in line with Indian authorities. The notion of flexibility is very important. The agreement will be strengthened over the years as trust builds up. Paris conference will cannot be a sort of miracle event, but we have to give birth to a universal framework which will provide incentive for all countries to join the global race to the top for sustainable development. Several steps will build up momentum before Paris. We have the UN Climate Summit in September, to which key leaders of the world are invited. We have the COP20 in Lima in December, where hopefully the foundation of the future agreement will be laid. And in the first quarter of 2015, countries should present their proposals. The European Union will make its own objective for 2030, known in the fall of 2014. France has already committed on its own to reduce its greenhouse gas emission by 40% at least by 2030. Another step will be the capitalization of what we call the Green Climate Fund, which will have hopefully to occur by the end of 2014. Dear friends, as we reflect on this challenge, we must look into our heritage for inspiration. the world, I think, can learn from India's Minaree culture. Hinduism emphasizes the importance of preserving nature. And I understand that one of the precepts of the Vedas, the ancient knowledge at the very root of Hinduism, says, quote, "We all are reared in the lap of Mother Earth. We may enjoy a long life provided we are watchful and alert and sacrifice our all for her, her being Mother Earth." So let us be true to this ancient precept. This is a time to act. As our friend Dr. Pashwe said, the climate fight is at 5 minutes to midnight.